The first time I saw him again, I nearly dropped the damn coffee. Not because he looked different though he did, but because the universe clearly had a sick sense of humor. There he was, standing on the dock in full captain's uniform. The man I'd spent years pretending not to care about. Ethan Walker, my best friend's ex-fiancé. My secret, silent heartbreak. We were in Charleston, South Carolina. The salty breeze wrapping around me like a warning. He didn't see me right away, which was good because I wasn't ready to see him. Not after everything. Not after I'd told him years ago with a perfectly steady voice that I despised him. That was the lie I built my whole defense on. Jamie? His voice was deeper now, but unmistakable. I froze. 3 years hadn't dulled that sound. It still carried that calm, authoritative alpha timbre that could settle a storm or start one. I turned, and for a second, I hated myself for noticing how the wind caught his hair, how the sun caught the gold in his eyes. "Captain Walker," I said flatly, like he was a stranger. Something flickered in his gaze. Hurt, maybe, or maybe that was just me projecting. I'd been doing that since the day I met him, back when he was supposed to be the happiest man in the world because he was marrying my best friend, Claire. The thing about lies is that they rot you from the inside, and mine had been festering for years. I wasn't supposed to be here working on his ship, but my freelance marine photography gig had dried up, and the only paying work in town was on the Starlight, a luxury charter boat he captained. "Still taking orders, Jamie?" he asked as we boarded. His voice was light, but his eyes were sharp. "Still giving them?" I shot back. The crew mostly bade us pretended not to notice the tension. The first few days were mechanical. I avoided him. I photographed the coastline, the guests, the dolphins trailing the bow. But Ethan had this way of being everywhere without trying. His presence filled the ship, steady and unshakable. He'd call out commands with that same firm, unyielding tone, and it made something in me ache. At night, when the passengers were gone, I'd stay on deck, editing photos under the stars. And somehow he always found me. "Beautiful shot," he said one night, leaning against the railing beside me. I didn't look up. "Talking about the photo or yourself?" He chuckled, a low, warm sound that made my chest tighten. "Guess you still hate me." I should have said yes. I should have reminded him of the last time we spoke, when I spat those words at him like venom to protect my heart. But the truth was, I'd never hated him. I'd hated that he belonged to someone else. I met Ethan through Claire during our sophomore year of college. She'd been the fiery type, funny, reckless, magnetic, and she adored him. I could see why. He was the kind of alpha who didn't need to posture steady, grounded, with a quiet smile that made you feel safe. I told myself I could live with being his friend. I told myself it was enough to hear his laugh, to see the way he looked at her, even if I wanted it for myself. And then, 2 weeks before their wedding, Claire broke it off. She never told me why, just said she needed to breathe. The night she left, Ethan came to me, not for comfort but for answers I didn't have. We argued. It was messy. I was angry for him, for her, for me. And then, before I could stop myself, I told him I never wanted to see him again. I told him I hated him, and I watched his face close off like a door I'd just slammed shut. Back on the Starlight, the days blurred into one another. The ocean had a way of making time strange. One afternoon, a storm rolled in faster than forecasted. Waves slapped the hull, wind tearing through the sails. Passengers huddled below deck, but Ethan and I stayed topside, securing lines. "Jamie, hold that rope," he shouted over the roar. I braced myself, but the wind yanked hard, and my footing slipped. In a flash, Ethan's arm was around me, hauling me against him. I could feel the solid warmth of him, the scent of salt and cedar. "You okay?" he asked, eyes searching mine. I nodded but didn't move away. For the first time in years, I let myself imagine what it would feel like if he didn't let go. Later, when the storm passed, he found me in the galley. "You scared me," he said simply. I wanted to laugh. Ethan Walker, unshakable alpha. Scared? But there was no humor in his expression. Just raw, open truth. You left me no choice back then, I said quietly. What choice? To lie, I whispered. His breath caught. For a moment, the ship was silent around us. Ethan didn't move. His eyes gold in the low galley light locked on mine, as if searching for the pieces of the puzzle I'd kept hidden. What did you lie about, Jamie? His voice was low, steady, but I could feel the pulse of urgency underneath. I swallowed hard. The air between us was thick, charged, like the static before lightning strikes. That I hated you. The words slipped out so quietly I almost wished the ocean would swallow them before he could hear. But he heard. I knew it from the way his shoulders went still, from the sharp intake of breath. Why? His voice broke on the single syllable. I turned away, staring at the steel counter, the condensation sliding down my water bottle. Because the truth would have ruined everything. Claire was my best friend. You were hers. I had no right to feel anything for me. He stepped closer, and I could feel the warmth radiating from him, the faint scent of salt and cedar filling my head. Jamie, you think I didn't notice? I laughed, bitter and soft. You were getting married. What was I supposed to do, confess and hope you'd throw away your life for me? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he moved until we were only a breath apart. You think I didn't feel it too? My chest tightened. He exhaled, and the sound was heavy with years of what-ifs. I cared about Claire. I wanted to make it work because I thought it was the right thing. But with you it was different. It scared me. So when you said you hated me, I believed it. I had to. The confession cracked something inside me. For years I'd replayed that night, convinced my lie had been a mercy. Now I wondered if it had been the cruelest thing I'd ever done. The days after that conversation were strange. We didn't talk about it, but something had shifted. Every glance lingered. Every brush of his hand against mine felt deliberate. One night, anchored off the coast of Florida, the crew went ashore to a small harbor town. I stayed behind, editing photos in the quiet. I didn't hear him come back aboard, but I felt his shadow falling over me, the faint clink of the railing as he leaned beside me. Couldn't sleep? I asked without looking up. Couldn't stop thinking. My heart beat faster. About you, he said simply. I finally looked at him. His eyes were softer than I'd ever seen them, the lines of his face gentler under the moonlight. I keep thinking, he continued, how different things might have been if we hadn't been so damn good at lying to ourselves. The air between us hummed. I didn't move. He reached for my hand. This time, he didn't stop, just short, his fingers curled around mine, warm and certain. Jamie, he said quietly, I'm tired of pretending. So was I. We didn't kiss that night. We didn't need to. But the weight of everything unspoken was finally starting to lift. Over the next week, the tension between us wasn't sharp, Anna Marie, it was warm, magnetic. I'd catch him watching me at the helm, a faint smile playing at his lips. I'd find excuses to bring him coffee in the mornings, lingering longer than necessary. Then came the final charter of the Season, a private booking for a wealthy couple. Just the two of them on board. Easy work. Calm seas. On the last evening, after the passengers had retired, Ethan called me to the deck. The sun was setting, painting the water in molten gold. The starlight moved in slow, lazy arcs on the waves. I've been thinking about your photographs, he said, leaning against the railing. They're beautiful, but they're missing something. What? I asked, amused. You. I frowned. I'm not the subject, Ethan. He smiled, a real one, the kind that reached his eyes. Maybe not in the photos, but you've been the subject in my head for years. I didn't realize I'd stepped closer until the space between us was nothing. His hand came up, cupping the side of my face. Tell me you still hate me, he said softly, and I'll stop. Couldn't. God, I couldn't. Instead, I leaned in, and for the first time in all those years, I kissed him. It wasn't tentative. It wasn't polite. It was years of longing, of regret, of unspoken truth, pouring out in the press of lips, the slide of his hand to the back of my neck. The world tilted, and for once, I didn't care if it righted itself again. Later, when we finally pulled apart, the sky was dark, the stars sharp above us. So, I murmured, "What now?" "Now?" He smiled, brushing a thumb over my cheekbone. "Now we stop lying." The simplicity of it made my throat tighten. Weeks later, when the season ended, I stayed in Charleston. Ethan did too. We didn't rush into anything loud or complicated. We just let it happen. Some mornings we'd walk to the docks together, coffee in hand, and I'd watch him greet the crew with that calm alpha presence that had once driven me crazy for all the wrong reasons. Now it grounded me. Some nights, we'd sit on the porch of his small coastal house, watching the tide roll in. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we didn't, but every time his hand found mine, I knew I'd been wrong all those years ago. Loving him had never been the problem. The problem was thinking I didn't deserve to. One evening in late autumn, he handed me a small wooden box. Inside was a compass polished brass, worn at the edges. "It's been with me since my first voyage," he said. "Figured you should have it." I looked up, startled. "Why?" "Because," he said, eyes steady on mine, "no matter where I go, I keep finding my way back to you." I didn't answer. I just leaned in, kissing him again, the waves breaking softly in the distance. This time there was no storm, no lie, just the steady, unshakable truth of us. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.